We are live now. You may proceed, Leonard.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Leonard, and my KD knowledge development topic is RESTful API integration in PHP MySQL projects. So, what is an API? An API basically is an acronym for Application Programming Interface. APIs are used across the computing world in different types of machines. They are used basically to allow applications to talk to each other. Every time you use an application like Facebook or WhatsApp or iMessage, or you are checking the weather on your phone, there's going to be an API that is being used to deliver the data to you. So this diagram that you can see is basically the journey of communication of data with the use of APIs. The client sends a request to the server, and that request is sent in JSON format. JSON is an abbreviation for JavaScript Object Notation. It is a format where data can be processed by a client and sent to the server. The server now sends a response back to the client in HTTP format. HTTP is an abbreviation for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Basically, there are this set of methods that are used by the API to send the data. Those methods can be a get method, a post method, a put method, a delete method, a patch method, and so on. These are the HTTP methods that used to send data through the API from the client to the server. So whenever you use an application, any type of application, you are using an application connected to the internet, it sends data to the server retrieves the data, it interprets it, it performs the necessary actions, and it sends it back to your phone. The application then interprets that data and presents you with the information you want in a readable way. Because the application that you build with the use of the API will decode the JSON data that is being sent to raw text that can be consumed by a regular user. So there are different types of APIs. We have such as database APIs. Database APIs, these are APIs that are used to enable communication between applications and a database management system. There are different types of databases such as MongoDB, Postgres, MariaDB, MySQL, and so on. Examples of database APIs are like the Drupal 7 database API or the Dots database API. I've worked with database APIs in such a way that they are so integrated these days into applications. Like if you are working with Laravel, you don't even necessarily have to see the API. The API is built into the framework whereby you are just writing commands at the terminal and changes are being made in the database without you having to even go directly to your MySQL database. It is the API that is at work in this situation. So let's proceed to operating system APIs. Operating system APIs, they define how applications use resources and services of operating systems. Operating systems such as the Linux API, the Microsoft Windows API, these APIs, they have sets of rules that are used to determine how applications use those resources that are provided by the operating system. Another type of API is the remote API. These remote APIs, they define standards of interaction for applications running on different machines. Like basically, somebody is using an application on a smartphone, like an iPhone, and somebody else is using it on a Windows laptop, somebody else is using it on every one of the consumers Sorry, I got disconnected. I'm back now. So, in other words, one software product accesses resources located outside the device that requests them, which explains the name, which is basically remote API. Since two remotely located applications are connected over a communications network, particularly which could be the internet, most remote APIs are written on web standards. Examples of remote APIs are Java Database Connectivity API and Java Remote Method Invocation API. So now under web APIs, there are different types of web APIs like REST, Graphql, and SOAP. So now I'll talk about REST API. REST is basically an abbreviation for Representational State Transfer. It is a software architectural style that defines a set of constraints to be used for creating web services. REST APIs are some of the most famous and the most used tools in modern web development. Almost every application these days, they are developed as single-page applications on the front end, connected to back-end APIs written in different languages. So basically, in the olden days of programming, most applications were built in a monolithic system, whereby the view that is rendered on the front end is actually written in the back end. Then a templating engine is used to render those views. But now, with the use of RESTful APIs, a front-end engineer and a back-end engineer, these two guys, they don't necessarily need to see each other's code. They don't necessarily need to be working together. They don't necessarily need to be in the same building. With the use of APIs, a front-end engineer can build the front end of the application. The back-end engineer will also build the back-end of the application, and they use APIs to communicate. This is what they call a decoupled system instead of a monolithic system. And it's because of RESTful APIs that we've been able to accomplish this type of technology. So in this diagram, you can see just basically different types of applications of RESTful APIs. They are used for web applications, they're used for mobile applications, they're used for cloud-based services, partner applications, crowd resources, legacy applications, and so much more. Moving on to the next type of web API, I'd like to talk about SOAP. So SOAP is basically a standard communication protocol system that permits processes using different operating systems like Linux and Windows to communicate via HTTP and its XML. XML is an abbreviation for Extended Markup Language. The full meaning of SOAP is Simple Object Access Protocol. So SOAP-based API are designed to create, recover, update, and delete records like accounts, passwords, leads, and custom objects. SOAP APIs take advantage of making web-based protocols such as HTTP and XML that are already operating the operating systems. That's why it is developers that can easily manipulate web services and get responses without caring about language and platforms at all. Now, differences between RESTful APIs and SOAP is that, number one, RESTful APIs, they have no official standard because REST API is basically an architectural style. Also, API on the hand, it has an official standard because it's a protocol. RESTful APIs, they use different standards like HTTP, JSON, URL, and XML. SOAP APIs, they are largely based on HTTP and XML. RESTful APIs, they deploy multiple standards, so it takes fewer resources and bandwidth as compared to SOAP, XML for the creation of payload and results in large-sized files. SOAP APIs, they define too many standards, and the implementer implements the things in a standard way only. In the case of miscommunication from the service, the results will be error. REST APIs, on the other hand, don't make emphasis on too many standards and results in corrupt API in the end, which is basically an advantage for SOAP APIs. REST APIs, they use web application description language, while SOAP APIs use web services description language for describing the functionalities between being offered by web services. So to continue, I also like to talk about the third major type of web API, which is basically the GraphQL. GraphQL follows the same set of constraints as APIs, but it organizes data into a graph using only one interface. Objects are represented by nodes, and the relationship between nodes is represented by edges in the graph. Each object is then backed by a resolver that accesses the server's data. When a GraphQL server responds to an end user's request, it begins with the query route, and the resolver executes every field on the requested object. A key value map houses each field values, and some return another object selecting another set of fields. This continues until only a string or a number is returned. The server then responds with a nested set of objects as requested by the end users. The differences between GraphQL and REST, GraphQL is a language and a technology, while REST is an architectural pattern, which means that even as teams increasingly adopt GraphQL, REST is still going to continue to be the major web API that is used around the world. GraphQL is established around schema, queries, and resolvers, and is much more aimed to improve upon the REST philosophy by allowing you to ask for a specific piece of data, not just the entire block. No need for passing through a long stream of data. A programmer can get exactly what it needs, not the complete code that is necessary. Now, moving on, I would like to talk about API key. The API key is an extremely important part of programming. It's basically a code that gets passed around by computer applications. The program or application calls the API calls the API to identify its user, developer, or calling program to a website. So the API key basically is a form of authentication token. Like when you are making an order on an e-commerce website like Jumia, and a 6-digit token is sent to your number to make sure that you are the user. That's basically something like what the API is. It's used to ensure that only a particular user has an API key to make sure that he is the only person accessing the data. So the key comes with this access rights for the API that is associated with. API keys are used with projects, while authentication is designated for the users. Cloud endpoints will in many cases handle both the authentication procedures as well as the API keys. The difference between the two is authentication tokens are used to identify the users, while the API keys are used to identify the projects making the call. The project making the call can either be the website or the application that is making the call to the API. This cutout you can see, it's just like a screenshot I took from a website that I use. Is a news API website. You know, when you go on websites like punch.ng and you wonder why is it that every time you go on this site, always getting the latest news? Is it that there is somebody working 24/7, going around the world and just uploading and typing the news on the website? Not necessarily. What is happening is those websites, they use these API keys to render news from different sources into their website so that they can always be getting the latest news happening around the world as they are being submitted across the world. So this news API, basically, you get your API key and you can build a template for a news website where you'll be able to render that data into your website. You can see if I get my API key now, this is basically still under the news API website. You can see this is JSON. This is the data in JSON format. You can see the title, Bitcoin's biggest corporate backer, with the URL, when the news was published, the content of the news, and so on. What is basically happening here is this news article is still in JSON form. So with the API, I will be able to summon this news article. Then I'll write the code that will decode this from JSON form to readable text for users that are accessing the news site. So on this, we can see a small code snippet. This is just a simple code snippet to show you how you can use APIs to render data in a web page, a web application. Here, the URL, this is taken from the news API site, published an API key. This code here, this long code is the API key I'm talking about. It is unique to only me. If you go on this site, you'll be given a different key. So here you can see I'm coding the JSON data. Now that it has been decoded, I created a for each loop to be able to render each attribute of the JSON data, the title, the description, the content, the author, when it was published, all these things, so that I can now render them on a web page as text. And here is just simple CSS code for the website, just so that you can arrange the articles so that they won't be overlapping, and they will be possible for a regular user to view them. It will be convenient for viewership. And here is the simple news website. You can see the title there, the description, the content, the author, when it was published. All of this have been done with the use of APIs. So with this short presentation, I hope I've been able to explain and enlighten a lot of minds on the importance and the resourcefulness of APIs and why they are so powerful in modern web applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard.
Thank you, Leonard. Next presenting is Samuel Swagger. He will be presenting to us a title called Time-Saving CSS Techniques to Creative Response Web Design. Samuel Swagger is in the building. Samuel.
Yeah, good morning. He called me during the first session that his phone crashed. Though he asked for the link, the Zoom link, so I sent it to him already. So I think he's trying to sort it out.
Okay. So while we wait for him, Mr. Badi.
Well, also questions. Do we have questions for Leonard? I mean, he's giving a good overview about APIs and all. I'm sure there should be questions. And Leonard, if nobody has questions for you, then you will ask people questions. That's the way we do it.
Okay. I should ask questions.
Yes, from your talk, from your presentation, to make sure people got it. But first, let's find out if people have questions for you before you then ask them questions. Over to you, Samuel. You're on mute, though.
Okay. Leonard, I have a question. You said something about a system, what should I call it now? APIs getting news automatically from other sites. Is it when we use the API, are we going to pay for the API, or is it something that we develop on ourselves by just typing the codes? I need a clarification on that side.
Sorry, I can't hear you clearly.
You said something about APIs, that
Okay.
these APIs, it generates news from other websites and put it on your own site. Is it a coding system, or something that we buy so that it can generate news for us? I want to get more clarifications on that.
Yes, basically that's what it is. He just said it. He said, is it a coding? That's basically, it is the code that is used to decode, basically to decode the data in that, which is still not, which is in JSON format, but it's used to decode it into something that is actually palatable, something that can be read by.
Okay, you're saying that you're saying that anybody that knows the code can actually use the code and leverage on the code without paying a dime.
For that particular API, that one is free. So you can do it without paying a dime. But there are some that are not necessarily free, some kind of advanced technologies, advanced APIs that are not free. But that one is free. So yes, any developer can use it.
It's the APIs are saying the function, is it limited to new alone or any probably e-commerce? Like I want to do some affiliates, just automatically get the product from my affiliate site and post it on my own blog. Does it work that way?
I've not used an e-commerce API before, so I can't necessarily. I'm not in the position to answer that question.
Okay, sir. That'll be all for now.
But your correct answer should be, but I will check and get back to you.
I'll check and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Go ahead, we can hear you. Though your name isn't showing, so please update to your name when you are done.
Okay, good. My name is Samuel Shoaga. I can't seem to connect with my system. I don't know if it's possible to just do an oral presentation.
No, not at all, Samuel. What we can do is we schedule you for another day since it's an hardware issue, so you won't be sanctioned by Pro Services.
Okay, sir.
All right, so Leonard, do you have extra 13 minutes for question and answers before we end the session? Alternatively, if there are no more questions, then we can end the session as well.
Okay. Before we end the session, I will love to tell everybody that it is very important that we participate and listen to anybody who is presenting his or her knowledge development to us here. So it's very important that we participate in asking questions also. So so we won't get sanctioned by the Pro Services this time. Thank you.
Excuse me, I want to ask something. Good morning.
Good morning, Sheyi.
All right. So Leonard, as a layman, I want to as a developer, I want to explain to a layman who has no idea what programming is. How do I explain what an API is best? Did you get my question? Hello,
Leonard.
Did anybody get my question? Did anybody get my question?
Yes, I got your question. Leonard.
Yes.
She asked you a question saying, as a layman, what can you tell us what is? Sheyi, can you come up again, please, Sheyi?
Okay, I asked you as a developer, how do I explain to a layman who has no idea of programming how important an API is, or what an API is?
How do you explain to a layman? Well, all you have to tell him is that an API is basically the tool that allows applications to communicate with each other. It allows them to talk to each other. That's what it does. Is that, sorry, did you get me?
Yes, is an application that makes two.
It's a tool basically that allows applications across all kinds of devices, whether it is a Windows computer or an iPhone, that allows applications across all types of devices to talk to each other, to communicate. That's basically what it does.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? Is there anyone who has questions? So Leonard, will you be showing us questions and see who are the active people? Do you have any questions for your listener?
So has anybody worked with APIs here? And what did you use them to do?
Okay, I work with API.
Okay, can you just like
All right.
enlighten us on what you use them to do?
Okay, I was. We were building a software that sends a message to people every morning about their stock. So, for example, you bought a stock and you bought it at $600. The next day, we'll go to the stock market. We'll draw their APIs to know the percentage increase, to know the present stock price. They will now calculate it with their percentage, so we know if there's an increase or there's a decrease, and it sends a mail or an SMS to your phone early in the morning telling you your current stock price and the percentage increase or decrease.
Okay. That's a very innovative way of using APIs. Anybody else?
Leonard, you are allowed to mention names. You can mention any name so we can know what people listening to us.
So Patrick, have you used APIs in programming before, and can you explain to us what you use them for?
Actually, no. So I think I started my developer stuff recently, and I'm still looking forward to more experience, to gain more experience about all these things. Actually, I've read about API before, but I am not sure if I'm not really detailed like today, because you answered the question. The question I wanted to have, if the API is limited to certain in the area of technology like blockchain and other what's it called, this e-commerce stuff and all that. But you have already answered the question that it's like a kind of tools to communicate on all to communicate from different platform. You understand? So I think I have understanding, but it's not something I've really like pay much attention to until now. But I think I still have a lot to learn about it, so that I think maybe later in the day I will go and make more research to have better understanding about it. So that's my own feel about it. Well, I'm not saying that I can, well, I have understanding, at least little understanding about what it is, but I think I still need to know more about it to really understand it very well.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. So Samuel, would you like to take over?
Okay, so there's no more question. Is there no more question? So tomorrow we'll be continuing the KD and we'll be having John Falano and John Falano and hello, can you hear me now? Hello.
Yes, we can hear
you. In the absence of no questions, so let's call it a day. Tomorrow we shall continue from here where we stop, and we'll be having another presenter, which will be communicated to us on KD channel or Slack. Thank you everyone for attending the KD session. Thank you.